All right, so let's just have a conversation about antinatalism. It's something that I've been making videos about it on my channel, but I never had the chance to sit down and talk about it for real. My videos were all pretty short. I just wanted to just let it all out. So it's the a good starting point would be to go back, tell the story of how I became an antinatalist. So it all started when I was 25, so like 7 years ago, that I was in not a good position in my life, and I was kind of angry at my parents for having me and dealing with these issues. And at that time, I had this kind of radical idea. I didn't know about antinatalism. I just had this thought that, you know what, I'm not going to do this to anyone else. And that time, again, it didn't really, not that it didn't make sense to me, but I didn't know that it can actually, make it actually a rational position. I thought that it was just something weird thing that I want to do. Like, I don't want to have kids. Like, that was very a weird decision on my part. But as time went by, I realized that it actually makes a lot of sense. I started thinking about it that it wasn't just like an emotional outburst. That, hey, I'm just so angry at my parents that I don't want to do this anymore or something like that. After a while, I realized that, hey, it's actually, it makes a lot of sense, even though it's completely, at least it seems like completely natural to us to have children. But if you think about it rationally, it doesn't make sense at all. I mean, if we want to be consistent with other moral positions that we have. So for me, antinatalism just basically boils down to this fact that I'm not going to say that life is very difficult. I mean, it's not easy, of course. But I can boil it down to basically saying that, okay, life is not easy. There are difficult things in life. And you can have any idea about those difficulties. Good for you. Like, if you have a philosophy, you're like, yeah, this is pretty good. Like, if I don't experience these pains, I won't grow or anything. That's fine. And even I can have those things. I can find meaning in those sufferings and enjoy them, have a great life. Everything's fine until you realize that when you bring a child, you're basically deciding on their position. I mean, on their behalf. Whether they want to be in this position or not, that's not something that I can decide, So, okay, good for me that I have all these interesting philosophies about life. But it's not for me to decide whether I want to be in this position or not, because there are pains and bad experiences in life. So no matter how great alchemist you are, that you can turn all this suffering into gold and make it enjoyable for yourself, it really doesn't matter how good you are. The point is that you're not in a position to make that decision for someone else. And I guess that's very basic morality. It's like a basic moral principle, right? And I usually make this example that I can't go out and like slap someone else on the street and then give them some money, even if they are happy afterwards, even if they are like, yes, that was great, I'm not in that position to make that decision, because there's other people, they have their own decision. So when you think about it in that sense, you see that, okay, that makes sense. Like, yeah, I can't make decision. I need their consent. But that consent is not possible. And it's interesting that some people actually use that fact that, okay, the consent is not possible as an argument against antinatalism. But to me, that's actually the main thrust of the argument, that we cannot get that consent from the unborn. So because we cannot get the consent from those that are not born yet, we cannot really make that decision. Just because someone is not able to consent does not mean that that gives us the right to take the decision for them. Um, so yeah, I guess in general, it just comes down to very basic principles. And it's very interesting how indifferent we can become toward these kind of issues. Like we can be very sensitive towards some moral issues, but when we get to this point, it's just we turn off. Like we don't care. We simply don't care. We couldn't care less about our children. Like if you listen to conversations that people usually have when they want to have a kid, it's as if they're talking about I don't know, a TV or something, that they say, you know what, I really would like to have children in my life. Or like you never hear them talking about like it's for the good of the child. It's never about that child that is to be born. It's always about them. But we're not talking about a TV or a car or something. We're talking about a human being. A human being who's going to grow and experience life and get old and die and experience all the bad things that you are experiencing. And life doesn't have to be full of suffering. I mean, good, you can make a great life for your child, okay. But it's not your decision to make. So yeah, it's very interesting that they can just make this decision and without any hesitation. Like they never imagine that child in their life. Like even right now when I see little kids, I'm thinking, when I see them, I see the things that they're going to suffer. Like sometimes they're crying right now. I'm like, okay, like that poor kid. Like he's crying right now, but yeah, of course he's crying for candy or for an ice cream or something. But it's pain, you feel it, especially for children, because it's their whole life, and when they're crying, it's crying deep down, and you feel their pain. Yeah, it's fine, they're gonna forget about it in a moment, but the pain at that moment is real. And every time that I see that, I'm like, I can never do that. Like if I have a kid one day and my kid starts crying, I just cannot just imagine that moment that I feel like that I'm responsible for that. If I hadn't done that, that kid would not be in that position crying right now. And that's just not that specific moment, It's going to be something constant during their whole life. I think about all the heartbreaks, think about all the diseases and things that they might face in life. Age, suffering, and death in the end. All the confusion that we have in life, all running around trying to find some meaning, all the philosophies, all the struggle that we had to go through to find all those philosophies, that you're now so proud of. But it's not my decision, and it's not your decision to have that kid. And yeah, it's just weird that how different creatures we can become when we move from one situation. You see people activists about all these different stuff. They're much less, I wouldn't say like they're not important, but the object that we're talking about is definitely less important than the life of a human being that we're talking about. Yet when they come to having children, they completely become immoral. They're not consistent in their morality. So yeah, even though I started with kind of an emotional outburst into anti-natalism, I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know the name. I searched online, and then I found, hey, there seems to be a community. So what I'm saying is not total nonsense, that people can understand it too. So that means that like there is a rationale behind it. Anti-natalists are not all people, because that's like an image that people usually have. They're all these depressed people ready to commit suicide, and they're just angry, so angry at life. They think that life is full of suffering, and they're suffocating, and they say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna finish myself, and I don't want anyone after me. It's not really like that. At least it's not for me, because I'm fine, like, I don't believe that life is full of suffering. I don't believe that life is an evil per se, It's not a hell. It can be, but it's not, at least for me, it's not. And I'm not depressed. I'm actually okay. I'm doing my PhD. I'm pretty happy. I enjoy reading books, and I enjoy going to the nature, and I have all these interesting philosophies to get something good out of suffering, and all these sort of things. I have them. But still, no matter how good this thing can become, this is not my decision to enforce life, to enforce this on someone else. Like, the only position that I could do that is when if I knew that there is absolutely nothing in life that would require the consent of someone else to participate in it, then I might be able to have a child. But that's not possible, because you know what? We have headaches, and that's it. We have headaches. Everyone gets them. And to me, that's enough. That requires consent. I can't force people into a room in which I know they're going to get a headache from. So how can I bring a child into this world? And I'm just, and that I'm washing down the amount of pain and suffering in this world, okay? I'm not going to go into that direction, because we know how horrible life can get. So I'm not talking about children with cancer. I'm not talking about those people dying from hunger or from suicide, or people who are being treated badly, in jail, raped, mutilated. I don't know, like war. There's so many bad things going on right now that, like, I'm washing it down to just a headache, just to give you the idea of how deep this thing can get. That you really don't need all of those bad things. You don't need to have like a dark view about life to become an anti-natalist. You can actually have a very positive view about life, and yet be an anti-natalist, just because it makes sense, morally. We are responsible. So yeah, I guess, but this is just a start. I'm pretty sure I have a lot more to talk about anti-natalism, but for now, this is enough, I guess. But then we'll see. We'll get into more details, and I will try to pick up some specific topics, go into more details on that topic. Try to bring in some of the objections that I hear, because I have friends and I talk to them and I give them this position. I also sometimes go to the street. I hold signs up for anti-natalism. People come to me, they talk, and so I hear different things, and I can go into details and talk about them. But that will be for another video. So yeah, see ya.